board wants to provide ample opportunity for public comment on matters that come before us. Your input is important. If you wish to address an item already on the agenda, we ask that you do so when that item comes up for discussion. If you have a comment on a matter not on the agenda, this is the time during our meeting for such comments. The board would like to remind everyone in attendance that to avoid violations of individual rights of privacy, a member of the public wishing to address the board during this time will not be allowed to make comments about any student, staff member, or member of the general public during this time. Does anyone wish to speak at this time? Okay, I have one other thing I would like to, I guess I'm going to read it just to keep myself on track, but I would like to take a moment and publicly commend a few individuals involved in the medical emergency of one of our student athletes on January 13th. I know that none of these people expect to be recognized for their actions, but I feel they are deserving. During an evening practice, our three boys basketball coaches were faced with a sudden and critical situation involving a student's health. Without hesitation, they immediately called 911 and began administering life-saving measures. They utilized their training and their instincts to do the right thing at the right time. Within minutes, an off-duty sheriff's officer was also in the building to join the efforts. A situation that could have ended in tragedy did not, and because of their actions, the student is back in school with us today. As a trustee, and more importantly as a parent, I want to thank our coaches, the sheriff's officer, the 911 dispatcher, the EMTs, and the volunteer firefighters that all responded to the school in a matter of minutes. I also want to thank the Billings Clinic for their part and the Townsend Schools administration team for their after-action efforts in caring for the emotional well-being of the students and our coaches in the hours and the days after this event. To all of you, thank you. Now, any other recognition delegations? No. We'll move to the elementary building project updates. Turn it over to Shane.
Great. So this afternoon we actually had our pre-bid walkthrough. The DAC and A&E, along with for contractors that will come and ask questions. We had a good turnout. There was roughly 20 plus people that showed up, which is encouraging, especially in this weather. They were willing to come down and look at it, so we're expecting pretty good competition in our bidding, so that's always a plus. With that, we did end up, we're going to slide the bid date 1 week. There was a few contractors that they said they would need a little more time. I think we all felt as a team that would be prudent to do. Make sure we're keeping them in the loop and getting those bid numbers. So we're sliding that to the 24th at 1 o'clock. With that, one of the things we've got to talk about is we found out that the permitting process was not going to be all through the state. Evidently, Townsend does have one single a building official that will look at building. So we talked with the city. They said we would still submit the plans to them. The mechanical, electrical, plumbing, I guess, still goes to the state. That's what the state had told us. So from that perspective, we do have a permit fee. It's roughly $24,000 that was sent over by the city. So a request that we would get that submitted, that we would pay that. We have a placeholder of $47,000 for the permit in the global budget, which you guys have all seen. And that would have been based on square footage of the state numbers. What we're not clear on is if there is additional costs to that, since they have to send it up to the state. Nobody's really clarified that with us, or been able to clarify that with us. So we're going to do this first initial step. Let's get it submitted. Let's get that process moving. They'll send it up. They have an engineer in hell that'll look at the zoning. That's all they look at. The building official will look at the building. And then from there, we'll figure out where the MVP goes at that point. So with that, I definitely would like to make sure that we can move forward with getting that submitted for permitting.
So do we need to then go ahead and submit that?
You've approved the budget for the permitting, we have to do the permitting, but I just want to make sure that you guys knew that that was the
Okay.
case. So
Because we've got
I would say, yes, we need to
executive
turn
waiting
loose the permitting now, so we will incur a $24,000 cost for the permitting.
But until we go over that $47,000 number.
Yeah, until we know when the
within-
Yeah, and that's gonna be between Townsend, how Townsend and the state look at that, I guess, because the state couldn't give Jason or I a clear
Yeah,
direction on that.
apparently this is a new, within the last year or two, kind of a new protocol with the city of Townsend. Prior to that, everything went to the state for full review and permitting. And I guess there was some sort of a crisscross between the city and the state as far as the inspection goes. So the city decided they're going this new direction. Now, I don't know that there's been a project this size or scope done in this manner up to this point. So in talking with their third-party engineer that the city basically keeps on retainer to review the zoning, it was his feeling that this project was the size and the scope that the city might kick it up to the state for full review. But at this time, it's unclear. When I did talk to the city building official, Jim Schauber, he indicated that he would review based only on the building side, not the mechanical, electrical, plumbing side. So this sounds like it's new for the city, it's new for the state, and we've never encountered this process. So
I was just gonna say.
the recommendation from the engineer they have on retainer was to submit to the city, they'll kick it up to him for zoning, he'll kick it back, and then the city will decide what they're gonna do from that point moving forward. And that's about the best answer. I mean, we spent quite a bit of time trying to talk to different individuals with both the state and the city to try to figure this out, but it sounds like they're kind of in uncharted waters right now, everybody.
But to at least get the process started, obviously, we want to get the plan submitted, let's get the permitting process moving. So,
Would this potentially cause any, or this unclearness, would that potentially cause any delays?
Hopefully not.
I don't think so, I think we're early enough, and we still,
Yeah.
before we'd even break ground. And the state was knowing this was coming, because we've been talking to them, I've been talking to the building officials for quite a while. So it's not like they didn't anticipate this was gonna be coming. And they're usually fairly quick, and in fact, Daryl thought he would have his review done pretty quickly. And he's the state inspector, and then when he called this in is when this all kind of started.
But now there's a middle person.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, it is, and the building piece, again, is different than the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. So it sounds like that still goes up to the state. And hopefully that falls underneath of our $27,000 or $24,000 permit fee. But nobody gave us a direct. I don't know. So with that, the plans are obviously out.
Yeah.
I know that it's been advertised. We'll have one more advertisement because we are going to extend the date to the 24th. So there'll be another advertisement that'll go out. So we still stay within our parameter, and we'll soon by no later than 12 for the bid date. And that will be at PAC's office, like it was scheduled the week before.
And you'll get that to someone here too, so that we can update people on our social media
Yeah,
stuff.
so,
Okay,
we'll send you the addendum, so
Okay.
get it on the Facebook,
okay,
and then Tim will obviously have it in his,
Okay.
at the Builders Exchange and
okay,
everywhere that needs to go
Perfect.
there.
thank you.
I'll send you a similar
Okay,
email that I did last time,
it worked perfect. It was very easy to do.
Okay.
Yep.
Yep.
Good. Any other questions, comments for Shane or anybody in the team out there?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Okay, so we'll submit, I'll be with you, Eric, and we'll submit to the city tomorrow.
Okay.
Well, you know, with Jason, to make sure we have all the plans and can transfer that.
Okay. COVID response plan.
I guess we don't have a whole lot of updates other than we did have, and I was going to cover this in the next one, we did have a student services committee meeting where primarily we actually looked at the discipline policy, the 3300, visited, but we also did kind of touch base. Since that's the committee, we decided we'd talk about mask mandate. And if the governor just out of the blue decided to drop that mandate, before a lot of the vaccinations and such were in place, and it was a consensus there that it's something we should probably continue with in the school to do everything we can to mitigate the spread of COVID. So, and right now we're dealing with a few cases. It's been really quiet for quite a while, but starting back up, so we're keeping an eye on things very closely.
So kind of across the bridge when it happens kind of deal.
Yeah, it was more if something happens quick and we're not sure, we're going to sit down and quickly come up with our plan again. But yeah, I guess that's it. Is we just really don't know where we're going to be at any given time. We could get a surprise out of the governor. It does, however, look as though he's still sticking with his plan to get so many people actually vaccinated first before he drops the mandate. We're seriously hoping that school's out before we get to that point anyway, so we can regroup for next year.
There was a couple of legislative things he really wanted to make sure were in place as well.
Yes, actually, yeah, the legislation in place that we can't get sued for anybody getting COVID in our system and just some protections that are out there.
Okay. Questions, comments? Does that cover the committee meetings?
It kind of does. We worked on the discipline. However, we might probably skip over that tonight because we don't have our lead person in here to help us present with that.
And I think there were some things that didn't speak to one another within that as well, within the other series.
Yes, that's a good point. We got an email and I think he had some concerns because it didn't really align with our handbook, kind of what we have in there. And so he wanted to really get that tuned in also. So hopefully next month we're ready to do this.
Very good. Okay, consent action items, minutes and warrants.
I move to approve the minutes and warrants as presented.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes and warrants as presented. Is there any discussion? Discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes. Action items, approve Dick Anderson construction contract. So I know there was some email dialogue. I think Pam went ahead and printed most of the documents. We did not print the general conditions. That's probably my fault. I emailed it to all of you and I did not email it to Pam. That's probably an error on my part, but we did not print that because that is a pretty ginormous document too. That is what the writer is for. Maybe I'll just let Shane touch on that a little bit before we move forward.
Yeah. So the A201 is general conditions of a contract. It's actually a non-signature document. There's not a signed piece on it. That's like a global overarching document that controls all the AI documents, all the contracts that fall under that. There's a myriad of contracts, the architects, the contractors. But that 201 is like a catch-all. And the specific contracts like the A133, which we're asking you to approve tonight, that's project specific. So it's very specific per type of project outline. And then anything that is not picked up in that or potentially could not be picked up in that is where like the 201 would fall into place. Your legal counsel, as well as TAC's legal counsel, there's some things in the 201 that your legal counsel wants changed. And that's why she puts together a writer, and that writer is negotiated with TAC's legal counsel to make sure that we're picking up anything that could be an outlier that's missed in the 133. So the 133 already has all it's edits in it, but there's things in the 201 that your legal counsel wants picked up. So that's what the writer does. Writer picks that up specifically to the 201, has nothing to do with the 133. The 133 is the main contract. Now it's a little confusing.
Which, as it sits before you, all revisions have been done and the contract's been finalized relative to any changes made by legal counsel.
Yeah, that was both from your legal counsel and their legal counsel, and Marty, Schumann, and Tim, and myself going through the logistics of the construction side. That's what I do for you guys on my side, is making sure that I have the things in there I know to be able to run my job for you guys. And then your legal counsel does the legal pieces of that, right? How to make sure that's crafted appropriately.
Could I get you to touch on, I know a lot of us originally were thinking there would be a number, that guaranteed maximum price, and that's not in it. You and I have had a brief discussion, but maybe you could share that.
Oh yeah, so the GMP is an amendment that comes with that. It's another contract component to a 133. There's a GMP amendment. That's what will come to the board once we have all of our pricing done. Any alternates that you guys have selected. So if there's something that's above and beyond, so Second Avenue, the one that you've asked us to potentially look at having an alternate for the Second Avenue, closure of Second and all that, that's going to be an additional cost because that was not in the original scoping. But if you so choose to fund that, right, that would be added into that balance. That would be part of your GMP, and you choose that, you approve the GMP, and that's a guaranteed maximum price for the project, which includes the project budget, right? That's things that you've chosen to add to it or what the original content was. So if we go and we bid, when we get our bids, we put all of our general conditions, that's cascaded through our schedule of values. That's plugged in, and if our bottom line, we know that it's 16,051,051 is our target value. Anything that would be above and beyond that, you guys would have to approve, obviously, and anything that you would want that was outside of scope. So the three things that I had you get the board look at last board meeting, Second Avenue, would be the lighting for the middle school and the PA system for the high school, because there were three things that we felt prudent as we were going through the design that we probably should add to this that was never contemplated in the original scope. Now, whether you choose to fund it or not, at least we're going to have the costs and you'll be able to choose whether to do it or not. And maybe if we get lucky and we have really good bids, maybe we're able to do it with inside of the original budget. So, but that's obviously a choice you guys will have to make.
The only thing I will point out is signing this contract, money-wise, the only thing you'll be obligated to is $5,000, which is our pre-construction fee. The additional fees will come, as Shane pointed out, in the amendment. So signing of this is only obligating you guys to the $35,000 that was for our pre-construction.
Which, to be honest, we already signed the PO for that we got approval for, right, for the pre-construction services. You guys already have that in place. So.
And then down the road, we'll have the bids for these alternates. So basically that pricing is good through the project. So if we start out the project and we don't fund a couple of those alternates, but down the road we have enough savings with our contingency remaining, we can then execute a second amendment to the 133 that would add that on top of the GMP. So the 133 is just kind of the base document that sets it up. We do an amendment for the GMP, but then we could also do subsequent amendments based on additional scope relative to those alternates or other work that's identified by the board that wants to be completed during the time of the construction.
Okay, so for somebody who has no experience with this kind of stuff, the GMP is that amendment to the contract that gives us the pricing. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And then, so there are three possible amendments, three possible additions, and each one of them would cost more, and we could choose what we wanted to do.
Absolutely.
1, 2, or 3.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay. All
But if
right,
it comes in under, again, if we get really good bids, maybe it all falls in and you would obviously go, yeah, it's well within our budget, let's do it.
now, if I remember right, and then so, you know, and again, this stuff is something I don't know a lot about, so you'll have to help me understand. So you're talking about 16,350,000 something last time is where those numbers were at that point in time, last month,
Our 90% pricing, correct?
the 90% pricing.
That's a budget. So that's just our group consolidating to a number we think, okay, because we have been doing some we started out maybe a million over. And there's been, okay, we're not putting as many windows in. That was one of the things we talked about.
Yeah.
I mean, so we started pulling that back. The metal panels, we changed the metal panels and the siding that you guys already saw, that we came back to that last meeting. Pulling that back in to get that number ratcheted down, but it's still our estimates, right? So there's 3 of us and we're looking at those. DAC is doing, extensive pricing exercises, reaching out to subs, trying to get it as accurate as we can. That's not bid day. Bid day, we're gonna have, hopefully you have 3 or 4 people looking at that one number that we got from, the mechanical guy or the siding guy. So we feel that there's a little bit of, I don't want to say fluff, nobody wanted to go below that 16.3, but we think that there's probably going to be enough competition to get us under the 16.3.
To the original 16,051?
Correct. That's what we're hoping for, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's going to bear witness, obviously, in the bids.
Right.
And between the 90% pricing at the 16.3 and us issuing the 100% documents, there were other additional items that weren't, accurately reflected in that 90% pricing that are now in those documents relative to, there was a big item relative to the framing bid, because we had one person give us a framing bid. Well, we talked with a second person and we feel based on past bid between them and this other person, we could realize additional savings. So kind of off to the side of that 16.3, we're looking at all these other items, trying to forecast bid date, like, we could get savings here, and for the PA system, we're gonna allow this change. We could realize 75K there. So, we're running a tally off to the side that basically equates to around $600,000 in savings that we're anticipating relative to that 16.3 number.
So that target GNP is in the 16,051?
It is.
Okay.
Because that's what you guys have already
Right,
approved. I mean, that's the budget.
Okay.
And that's what everybody's had to work off from the beginning.
I just want to make sure I felt good about that, coming full circle back around to that.
Yeah, and we've been tailoring, and everybody's been working really hard to tailor the plans to that number, making sure that we're scaling back on, and things that are not cutting program.
Right.
We haven't had to cut program yet. Now, the one thing I will throw out here is if we have a terrible bid day, which, God forbid, could happen, we would be looking at, okay, we're gonna have to cut some serious program. We're gonna have to cut pieces of this to get us to that 16,051. We're really hoping that we've done a good job of getting to that, but the market obviously is the market. And we think we're good. Tim did a good job of reaching out to a lot of subs to generate interest in this. We feel relatively good numbers. Bid day comes, you're at the mercy.
It is what it is.
It is what it is, exactly.
All right, I think that answered my questions, I think.
At some point, will we have the opportunity to approve, let's say you do have a bad bid day, and you have to make some cuts on it. I know we have some contingency to be able to say, okay, this is something we're not gonna cut. And we're gonna spend that contingency.
We wouldn't cut anything that would materially affect the project without it coming back to
But it'll come back to the board to be voted on.
First, we would go to the building committee with a list of recommendations, and as a building committee, come to a consensus, and then it would come back to the board for final approval.
So we'll see any major changes or minor changes.
Oh, minor changes, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and the minor changes that we're talking about, things you probably wouldn't even
Right.
have seen. Like, the windows you did see, we had to scale back some of those windows, just too expensive. We knew that going in. The siding, material selections changed a little bit, and there's nothing you're gonna see. It's gonna look just like you saw it. You know, those are the components that we're taking care of that aren't gonna affect your program. You're still gonna get what you know, the school, the size, the look, the feel. We've been lucky enough to be able to get to a number that we feel comfortable to take to bid without having to go, okay, we're gonna have to cut some footage, or we're not gonna be able to do the art wing, or, you know, something. We haven't done that at all, and that would obviously be back to you guys to make that.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Potential's there, though. I hate to.
It's always
We think
there.
we've done a good job.
Yeah.
Everybody's worked really hard to get it to where we're comfortable to take it to bid.
We avoided the big steel increase of 15%. That
That was
was
a
well
big
over
deal.
6 figures. You know, things like how the ceiling clouds were framing and hanging those and the material, we were able to kind of reconfigure that and work with one of the subcontractors, saved around $75,000 just on that item, you know, things like that. So when you walk into the school, what we've approved as a building committee and work towards, you're not gonna notice how those things are hanging, but it's saving a big chunk of money, basically, so.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you for the clarification.
You bet. And then I should add, the exhibits, those are things you've already seen and you approved. Other than the rules of on-site conduct, I think I did show you a copy of those like 8 or 10 months ago. And that's for us, we for the district. And that required no sex offenders, no background checks, you know, this, everything will have, everybody had a background check, people will be badged, and DSC does a really good job of that. This outlines it from our perspective. There was a change though in the law evidently, so Megan had to do it. She had to send me a new copy of that. That's the only reason you don't have it, is because of the vaping, and there was a couple of rules changed with vaping and stuff like that that had to be put in that. Right, or in COVID, there was a couple of COVID rules in there too. So she actually did send that back to me. I sent it off today to Tim. But it'll be the one that they have their own rules of conduct that are almost exactly what ours are.
So, and that's in the DAC contract?
Yeah,
that you approved?
it is. That's one of the exhibits.
Okay.
Any further questions or a motion, please?
I do actually have some questions on the rider real quick here. And it was kind of confusing because we got the rider and the contract and then got the general conditions last night. So I didn't get to really look over that, but it's pretty similar to the state one. Let's see. I think on 212.
Pam might have an extra paper copy if you
I've
want.
got a paper copy too.
No, this would be in the right.
Oh, and the rider. I know. Oh, there it is. I just have to look for the smart orange, yeah. Okay.
A couple of things on that one is the board shall be, to approve changes in total project budget, including alternates, or to agree to an extension of the date of substantial final completion. We should also have something in there about scope or material change to the project. Do you think that's necessary to be in there?
That's already in the 133.
Okay. Also on that, on the last sentence on representative, we should probably put an S on that in parentheses at the ending because we have more than one. It's typically our board chair and our,
Which one? I'm sorry.
the last sentence, the board shall designate an authorized representative, parentheses with an S, because typically I think Eric and Jason have been doing that, or I don't know, you've been using one or both, doesn't matter?
I don't think it matters.
Okay,
They're actually outlined in the 133. Specifically, their names are wrote down in the 133. So
okay,
that's why this gets a little confusing when I talk about the 201 being overarching document. The 133 spells a lot of this out very specifically, but the 201 is still always floating up there. And your legal counsel feels that it's important to change 201 as well. Go ahead.
On that 201, one thing, there's a hierarchy of how those things.
You need to go to 1.1.9,
Yep.
we'll line out the 133. 133 overrules everything here. That would tie. Anything missing in the 133, this would kick into place. Anything missing inside this, the specifications come into play. Anything missing for that,
Too big bucks.
it goes to the 201.
Right.
So,
Okay.
So the designated representatives are in the 133 category.
Got it. Okay. On 344, it says 13 days from the contract date. The contract should probably list the name manufacturers for each of the products. Is that going to be enough time? Or is it different in
Yeah, it
133?
should,
I mean, I'm
because they
just
have to
throwing
put-
out what I saw in
Yeah.
here, so if it's different
So
than
reason-
133.
Reason that that's probably fine is because we have prior approvals. We have to have prior approvals before that. So their materials have to meet prior approvals anyways, before the bid. So it doesn't, this won't matter from the perspective of we're already requiring that they have to put the exact spec what we have in, and if they're gonna change or deviate from that, they have to get prior approval. We give them a week before the bid. What did you say the final day was?
The 16th.
So the final day for them to get prior approvals is 16. So if it falls outside of that, no, they don't get it. Unless it's advantageous for us.
And just to explain that, let's take architectural, like the doors, for instance, within the specifications for flush wood doors, we have 3 or 4 approved manufacturers that can supply those doors based on that full specification section and all the parameters of the doors. If somebody that's not within those prior 3 or 4 wants to submit for the project, they fill out a form within the specification, submit all their product data, then Patrick Chapel in our office, as well as Tim and Cheyenne with DAC, review that, make sure they can meet the requirements of the spec, and then it becomes a prior approval prior to the bid date. So all of that stuff, like Shane said, is approved up front.
So in practice, it's 21 days at least. Because of the pre-approval, the week pre-approval.
For pre-approval, they have to put in what's either specified, which we know we'll accept, or
Okay, yeah,
they have
yeah.
to have it pre-approved.
Okay.
The other one is on 3.5 on the warranty start date. You have the warranty starting on substantial completion.
But I actually worked with Megan on this closely. Normally, we don't have an issue with the warranty starting right at substantial completion. But in this case, we're gonna be cutting through into the middle school. So I asked to add the, with beneficial use, meaning the warranty would start, because we're gonna have mechanical equipment that's gonna be utilized in a space that we're not in yet, because we're gonna be building in it. But that equipment's gonna be put in at that time. So what I have, the beneficial use means once we occupy, that's when it actually starts. The warranty starts, so that it's not starting, okay, a year ago, we haven't even been in and used it because it was done. So beneficial use means once we move into that space is when
And
the
which number is
warranty will
that?
start.
So like the music.
On 3.5, yeah.
That'll start once we move into that, even though we haven't. finished
Yeah.
the elementary.
Exactly.
Correct.
Yeah, what that does is it buys us the time that we haven't used that equipment. We don't have any beneficial use of it. I don't want the warranty to start on it because we have not utilized it, so.
And then in addition, there's several areas that require special warranties, and those are in the specification section. So roofing, for example, we have a longer period for workmanship, and then we have a 20-year warranty that's spelled out in the document. So the 1-year warranty that you're looking at right now is just relative to the general contractor warranty on the project, but there's several items that'll have special warranties in addition to that 1-year warranty that are pretty standard to the industry.
And we just don't like them to start it until we actually have beneficial use of that. area.
Right, and one of the things that, with the state, we're using final acceptance as a beginning date of our warranty. So we get we'll issue substantial completion when we get to owner occupancy, and then don't start the warranty until all the punch list items are done, basically. So that way you don't run into, if you get into an extended, and you might make exceptions for that, if you get into extended issues in a certain component, you might want to issue a final acceptance on everything else. But you can actually, if you have issues with something and you run up against your warranty date, you're out of warranty within a short period of time of it being completed.
I know exactly what you're talking about, and the way that we approach that is that they cannot, that piece of equipment has to be, we have to be able to utilize. So if it's breaking down, that is not when the warranty, I mean, if it's not running and operating with beneficial use, meaning, so this would go to your point, it's virtually saying the same thing, because let's say that mechanical equipment is not operating when we move into that space.
Right.
Let's say a unit ventilator, it's not working, we don't have beneficial use of it, it's not working yet. Until they get it 100% operational and that it's actually functioning, that is when the beneficial use takes place, that is when the warranty would start. So that way you don't you can't limp something along to 11
To the end of the
11
warranty,
months, and then all of a
basically,
sudden, okay, we're out. No, you just fixed it at 11 months and then it's broken 12. And that
So how do you track that?
is when
If
we
you
have
issue
beneficial
a
use.
substantial completion, then you've got a list, a punch list, you've got items on the list that are still ongoing.
Yep.
How do you track
How do
that?
I do it? I go through, when we get our commissioning report, I'll go through, mechanicals were the biggest.
Right.
I mean, that's where it is, it's mechanical. And we have a commissioning report. Until that commissioning report is completely picked up on the punch list, we don't have beneficial use. We don't have beneficial use of that piece of equipment. It's not running effectively, even though
So substantial completion doesn't start at owner occupancy.
no, substantial completion is when we can actually get in and the city will give us an occupancy permit. Or even a temporary occupancy. They actually have to give us a permit saying, here you go, here's your TCO or your CO. That's substantial completion, but beneficial use is when you say, okay, that's not working. We still are going to utilize the facility because we're going to move kids into it. We haven't figured out that rooftop unit is still not working. You don't get to start the warranty early when it's never operated appropriately, and that's where the commissioning agent comes in. Very important to have the commissioning piece to that, because they help us say, no, it's not operating properly. Okay, well, the warranty's not started, we don't have beneficial use.
Okay, so you'll track all the punch list items along until we have
Absolutely.
beneficial use, no matter if it's door hardware or whatever it is.
Not to mention the retainage that we do not release all retainage until we're 100% punched. And that's in the 133, so.
Okay,
The retainage, meaning the cash?
So there's a 5% retainage.
Right.
And that's held throughout the project. Now, one of the things that we do is we allow contractors, we don't hold 5% on, let's say, the footing and foundation guys. They're the first ones out of the gate, right? Well, you dig the hole and they're putting in the concrete. We always allow the GC probably about 6 months in, 8 months in, 6 months in to go, hey, we're building on top of this, our floors are up, our steel's up.
No problem.
Do we need to still hold 5% on a $600,000 contract? No, we don't. Because otherwise we're asking them to fund the project, the poor sub is sitting there. So we allow some of that to go out, but we do that on a scale, that we all agree to, saying, okay, we'll release that. But at the end, we're still gonna have a huge chunk of money, project this, there'll be $500,000 sitting in there. And that's retainage for the owner. And then we hold that until, obviously, those pieces are getting done. And DAC is good about this. We've never had an issue. They usually get it all done. We hold enough that if there's anything outstanding, punch list, we've got enough money there that it still keeps everybody's attention, and the DAC can get the attention of their sub because they're not releasing the retainage. When it's 100% complete, that's when we're release retainage. And that's straight out in 133, very, very specific and actually bolded. So.
So it's sort of like available cash would be a better,
It's just sitting in our
just sitting
account.
there, okay.
It's just sits, it doesn't even come out of our account is what it does, it just sits there.
And it just comes out of every pay application, so if they submit $100,000 pay application, 5% of that is retainage with it, which is withheld off of that 100,000. Then they submit another 100,000 pay app, another, 5% goes off to the side for retainage, yeah.
Okay. It's kind of hazy, but I cut it down.
You're good.
Yeah, and that'll be on a form, and you'll be able to look at that, because every month they'll put a pay application in, that'll be on 702. And that's an AIA document that ties into these contracts, it'll have retainage right there.
Okay.
So at any given time in the project, you're gonna look up, this is how much retainage we still have.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Next question I have is on 3.5, 1 through 6, and I don't see it in the section here where I have this note from. Anyway, relating to as-bills. Is it in that section? I have a note there on that section, but I don't see it in here now. Anyway, the point I wanted to make is, are you
133 or on the?
on the rider?
So the 133, and
Okay, the point I wanted to make is that they're updated as the building goes up, because if you wait till the end,
so.
You know what
and
happens.
DAC has, they're, well, and the contractors now, we require that. That's part of the requirement. They're as-built, they actually do it weekly. It's
Okay, good.
continually updated. And then we require a submission to the architect. So DAC will be submitting 2 hard copies, 1 electronic copy of the as-bills to A&E.
Okay.
A&E goes through and makes sure that they're all in order. And then we actually get very clean, nice printed sets of as-bills that will go into your files as well as an electronic copy.
okay.
We use a computer program called Procore that keeps.
Oh, okay.
It takes all the RFIs, middles, and everything, puts it in one place.
Yeah, it's really kind of fully automated with Procore at the end. We have a full project record that gets compressed. And that's like all the submittals, all the project data, all the shop drawings, all the RFI, everything like as far as correspondence back and forth rolled into a file that becomes part of the as-built drawings.
And I'm a stickler for that too, Kevin, is making sure those are updated, because it needs to be up air, and it's way easier at the end of the project, we can just hit print now. So,
Wow.
And Patrick in our offices as well.
And that program is what I had mentioned to you guys early on, is that you won't have administrative access to, you'll have access that you can do anything. Obviously DAC will be in control of that, A&E will be able to upload, and they have that ability. But you can go in and look at, you can be granted access that you can go in and look at schedules, pay applications, meeting minutes,
Field reports. Photos, yeah, all of them.
So you could be sitting wherever you are, whenever you want, and you can click on and go in and go, oh, I'd like to see what the meeting minutes were from this week's project meeting. You can literally go in there, once Tim's got them uploaded, boom, there they are. And then we'll have to go through a meeting minute review with the board, you guys can see it all. And then ask questions at the next board meeting if you have them.
And Jim, from a maintenance perspective, can go in there, click on the product data for the paint, know exactly what paint product was used where, all of the MSDS sheets related to that paint product. It really is all encompassing as far as what you get.
Very powerful tool for
Yeah.
you guys.
Okay, my next question is on 9.2 on the schedule values. It basically allows us some float on the schedule values. Along with that, do you get the unit costs as well? That's not something we're gonna be dealing with, but you will.
No. Yeah, well, you'll see it because it's gonna be on the GMP.
Right.
Yeah, so, and this is a little tough because this is in a different area than what a 133. 133, the cost of the work is under Article 6. Article 6 is where everything is really specifically spelled out how I want to see it. This is kind of a catch-all in 9.2 under the general conditions of a contract. Article 6 on the 133 will be very specific. And it is, we get a schedule of values, the DAC produces, which ties right to your GMP. Like that is your entire project breakout. Now, that schedule of values is also how we build, or how they will build, and how we will look at and review billing is based on that schedule of values. Concrete guys, $600,000 in concrete, they're 20% complete. Tim's going to request 20% payment on that. It's right there in that schedule of values. Or if there's a mistake, somebody gets a fat finger, they're 20% complete, but we're asking for 90% payment. Well, nope, made a mistake. It's actually only 20%. That's how I can look through the schedule of values and go, okay, no, we missed something here. We're not 90% complete with the concrete, we're 20. And then we talk about it, and Tim, it's hypothetical in terms of, oh yeah, that was my mistake. We slide it back, or it could be conversely too. It could be going, why are you only billed 20% and you're 90% done? So the schedule values, yes.
And
We have a very specific schedule.
And that correlates directly to that GNP, correct?
It does.
Correct.
Yep, it does. That's what makes up the whole GMP is the schedule of values.
Okay.
I'm just gonna skip through this process pretty quick here. You asked for in 9.3, consent of surety. There's no mention of a affidavit or lien waiver here unless I probably missed it, but do you?
We give the lien waiver with them, we did up.
It's outlined in the 133.
Okay,
Like specifically, I won't cut anything loose without, I have the lien releases. They're in the arrears for subs. DAC always cuts theirs. So Tim will, when he cuts a check, when they come to pick it up, like literally at that time, they sign a lien release before he gives them their check. He has the lien release, I get copied on it, but I know that it's okay to pay. Or that in the arrears 1 month behind. But yeah, that's very specifically spelled out in 133.
okay. 10.3, it talks about asbestos, hazardous materials. Do we need to include anything about lead or fiberglass in there?
No, we already have our Northern Industrial has already done our inspections. They're putting together a project to have anything that is abated. It's lead safe work practices in a school unless you have kids under 6 on the area, which we don't have. And everything else is going to be abated. So we're covered on all of it.
Okay, because that section doesn't mention anything but asbestos.
What's that?
That section, 10.3, I believe, doesn't mention anything but asbestos. I don't believe.
Well, at the bottom of 10.3.11, is that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I think.
I think he said that. He's saying it doesn't mention anything except asbestos.
Oh, except, yeah.
Yeah, the hazardous materials that's our issue. And we have that's us. We have Northern Industrial for all of those components. One of the things you try not to do is throw hazardous materials on GC because they don't carry the rate coverage. They have to actually go out and buy separate coverage for that versus us actually hiring Northern Industrial or testing agency that can do the design and you bid it. We actually get subcontractors that have the right insurances in place. And we take that on. We have the ownership of the hazardous material regardless. That's ours.
This is a little different section, where this section 10.3.11 is requiring us, the contractor, if we see a material that's specified to have asbestos in it, then we'll bring it up. We would do the same thing with lead or anything like that. If we see any hazardous material, I think it doesn't specifically say lead or anything like that, but it does mention hazardous material. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I guess I had some other stuff here, but I think it must be covered somewhere on the insurance, the aggregate amounts and everything they're in.
Yeah, that's specifically from the RFQ, which is one of the exhibits.
Right, okay.
And that's state standard. That's a state standard. So, which obviously DAC meets that. That was part of the RFQ.
And all of that's outlined in the specification within the bid documents for all subcontractors and suppliers.
The only thing I will throw in is a global comment that Shane has spent a long time on this contract. And this contract is, it's not A133s all the time. This is the basis document for all our GCCM work. Shane spent a long time to tailor this to be beneficial to, and it is, and much to our chagrin. But there's a reason he does it, just because he's working for you guys, and it is tailored to you. And we signed it before, we think it's fair, but it is tailored to you guys for sure.
Okay. We also have a duty to review it, so
Yeah, no, absolutely.
that's who we represent, our community, and that's our job.
Sure, absolutely.
Shouldn't have to-
Agreed. Oh, I'm good.
All right, so a motion, if everybody's in agreement.
Well, I move to approve the Dick Anderson construction as presented. Contract as presented.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the contract with Dick Anderson Construction as presented. Any further discussion? Discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion passes. Thank you, gentlemen.
Excellent.
All right, thank you for your time, appreciate.
I think I can let you go now.
I appreciate your patience with my questions.
Oh, yeah, that's what we're here for.
Absolutely.
And it worked out perfectly because the pre-bid was this afternoon, you're already here.
Thanks for coming, thanks for your time.
Yeah.
Appreciate all of your information and your patience with us. Okay, moving on. Approved interview questions for superintendent interviews.
Okay, I did put a copy of the questions, just if you want to just review them real quick, make sure I got all the appropriate changes. And, on number 5 was the only one that we kind of had a little bit of change.
Gentlemen and lady.
Same content. So, I guess I would have.
Yeah, I like the verbiage.
Yeah.
Well, I move to approve the superintendent interview questions as presented.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the superintendent interview questions as presented. Any further discussion? Discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Call for trustee election.
All right, well, Jason and Vanessa are both up for re-election this year, and so we will need to approve a resolution basically calling for election, so we can run that election.
I'll move to approve the trustee resolution calling for the election.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the trustee resolution calling for the election. Any further discussion? Discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed? Motion passes. Approved calendar change.
Okay, with the new basketball tournament format, we talked about this last meeting a little bit, there's a conflict with parent-teacher conferences on the 23rd of February. I'd like to suggest that we move our 3rd grade through 12th grade conferences to Tuesday, March 2nd, 2021. Any changes to the calendar need to be approved by the board, even if we're changing the date on that. So I did take this to the calendar committee to discuss that, and they all approved it. So,
And it's very likely we are hosting a tournament game that Tuesday. So it was a good thing to look forward and get that moved.
Where it would have been.
What's that?
Where-
Yeah,
where it
the
would have
old,
been.
the old date,
Okay.
yes, the old date. No, it looks like we are indeed probably likely hosting a game on the first Tuesday that was the original calendar.
Okay.
So, yeah.
so there will be a conflict in most. We're pretty sure.
Yeah.
So I would ask that we approve this calendar as I've presented.
Move to approve the proposed changes to the 2020-2021 school calendar.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the proposed changes to the 2020-2021 school calendar. Any further discussion? Discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Personnel, resignations, none, no.
No resignations at this time?
Employment, junior high wrestling coach.
All right, we did post it internally for the position of junior high wrestling coach. We have one applicant, which is Mr. Odell for that position. The interview committee recommended that we hire Mr. Odell as junior high wrestling coach.
I'll move to approve John O'Dell as the junior high wrestling coach.
Okay,
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the hire of John Odell as junior high wrestling coach for the 2021 season. Any further discussion? Discussion, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Long-term substitute.
All right, so Ms. Lockery will be taking maternity leave in February, probably pretty soon.
February 16th, I think she starts.
16th.
Yep.
And then most likely it will be through May, through the end of school. Harlan Conroy has been approved as a substitute already, and I'd like to recommend Mr. Conroy as a long-term substitute for Gemma. And of course, long-term, we usually do it at a rate of $75 per day.
and that's through the rest of the semester, you think?
Yeah, most.
Or the rest of the school year, I should say. The rest
Rest of the school year, that's doctors recommending because of COVID.
All right, I move to approve Harlan Conroy as a long-term substitute at the rate of $75 a day.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve Harlan Conroy as a long-term substitute at the rate of $75 per day. Is there any further discussion? Discussion, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Policy review, policy 3231P, search and seizure.
All right, and I think I just forgot this one last time to actually put it in there. So we did a first reading, and then I think we missed last month. But basically, the discussion we had, and I'm sorry I wasn't more specific here, was that their search and seizure policy was a lot more specific to what we would need to do, the different things for search and seizures. And so my recommendation, of course, at that time was to approve the MTSBA model policy 2331P search and seizure for second reading.
I guess we reviewed this last time, didn't we?
Yeah, this is the second reading.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I move to approve the MTSBA model policy 3231P searches and seizure for second reading.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the MTSBA model policy 3231P, searches and seizure for second reading. Any further discussion? Discussion, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Policy 3233, student use of building, equal access.
Okay, I don't know how much you want me to review on this. This is also a second reading. If you recall, that basically it was talking about secondary school student organizations. Ours limits it to secondary school, and I think we need to broader their policy. Basically says any of them. We do some at the middle school level and some at the high school level. Number 4, ours says in a non-participatory capacity, there's actually I'm trying to think of the terms they use. Ours is saying that the adult cannot participate in it, but the whole point of this is to be able to use the building during non-school time for non-school purposes, where you have an adult kind of leading that, if that makes sense. This kind of said that they can just sit there and watch. We actually have adults that lead those, including some staff people. But again, they're approved and they are not curricular and they're not during school time at all. And then the other thing about the MTSBA policy, they also talk about They reference policy 3510, which is school-sponsored activities, and 3222, distribution of posted materials, and 4331, school property for posting notices. So I would recommend that we approve the MTSBA model policy 3233, student use of buildings with equal access for second reading.
I'll move to approve the MTSBA model policy, student use of buildings for second reading.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the MTSBA model policy 3233, student use of buildings, equal access for second reading. Any discussion? Discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Policy 3235, video surveillance.
Our policy, again, is the same as the MTSBA policy. However, MTSBA does offer a second option that would include an audio option with the video surveillance. And I know Jason made some phone calls to MTSBA, and I believe sent some information out to the board concerning what he found. And so basically there's two opportunities there for motions. We can either approve it as reviewed, or we can move to approve the model policy with the audio option.
And of course, adding the audio option to the policy doesn't necessarily mean that we will
Exactly.
enact it. Because right at the moment, we couldn't do it because it's not on our policy.
Right, right.
So yeah, I think everybody just remember what I sent out and
Yeah.
whatnot. And it was groundbreaking information, but
And about half the schools do have, half of them don't, generally speaking.
that's what he said. About half of the schools that they're working with right now approved it. Again, he didn't know how many had enacted it, but about half of them were approved.
You're right.
And I think they assume most of them didn't use the audio, but and there are certain places you can't use audio.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, and my comments around that last month was around, of course, using audio strategically in common areas, and duly signed, I guess. So I just, and again, you heard my spiel last time. I think that the scenario I'm concerned with is that an incident happens, and a couple of you guys have heard me say this before. An incident happens, within a few seconds, phones come out, videos recorded with audio, and that occurrence is posted. Only part of that occurrence is posted out there in social media, and that's just the way the world is today. So my thought around having the ability to include audio, and I'm good either way. I don't have any optional verbiage myself, but I'm good either way on it. But it just seems to me that that's a 21st century solution for a 21st century social media problem, is to be able to protect our teachers and protect our students by potentially, if we needed to, being able to include audio within security recordings. And of course, that's only for security purposes. No one's going to be sitting out there trolling anything. And only if an incident occurs, do any of you guys ever go back to the security video. Is that correct?
Yeah, we rarely use it. We use it if we have a question of he said, she said, that we can review that to see what may have happened.
Yeah, and in today's world, in my mind at least, I would rather have the full story rather than clips found on the web. And that's my take. But I'm good either way, because I did not present any optional verbiage.
I would tend to agree with, I think, other reasons as well. I think it could be an important part of conflict resolution, as you said. And, I mean, there are, I mean, I think it just, I think we should give ourselves that option to do that. And as you said, strategically.
Yeah,
You know, it's not like we're gonna be hanging microphones in classrooms. And that's the other thing about these cameras is the audio is not very good on them. We're gonna hear loud sounds, we're gonna hear maybe some shouting or something if they're close to the microphone. But for the most part, that microphone isn't gonna pick up a lot of it anyway. If you're having a conversation in a hallway and there's a camera going down it, they probably won't even pick it up with the technology. Would you agree with that?
For the most part, yes.
I mean, it's not gonna pick up any of that.
I'd be very surprised.
Yeah,
I haven't actually tested it because these cameras do have the ability to record sound. And I know that these cameras are they do a very good job of what they do, but I have a tendency to agree with you that the microphone technology and a lot of this stuff is not up to where it could be.
right.
yeah, I think if you want it, you have to pay for it.
Yeah, you know, you look at the sound system on the stage and different, for a decent microphone or any type of microphone you use, you have to speak almost right into it in order to get it to record when you're intentionally trying to record something. So I don't know.
For me, I'd rather have.
As
the
far as
option.
people being afraid of being recorded, have their conversations recorded, you know, I don't know, maybe you shouldn't be talking about that anyway.
Well,
Wash your mouth out with soap, Sean.
Well, you know, in my mind, you know, if you're gonna be trolling audio, you might as well troll video, but if you're gonna be looking for something, you can find something with video. Nobody wants to do that. Nobody's
Yeah.
gonna do that.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's
Who's got
proper
the
use
time
of
to do
trolling.
that?
Well, I'll use it in that context. By definition.
That's a social media, that's a social media definition, I
Isn't
think.
that a fishing term?
So I guess, you know, my thoughts on what I gathered and talking with others, you know, a lot of people are pretty hesitant and reluctant. For right here and right now, I guess I don't have a problem with allowing ourselves the option. I think if we go to the point of implementing it, I think that's a whole other discussion. That will take
I
more
agree.
time, more research before we get that.
I can give you an example. I mean, if you're out of the line of camera and say there's an incident where, say there's a shooting, there's a gunshot, is that gonna be, that would be recorded. You know, now that's maybe out of the safety, unless, was that a consideration when you think about
Well, even going back and knowing what happened in the plant,
it? Yeah,
and in this case, and this is with this scenario,
because it may not be recorded otherwise unless you have the audio.
yeah, exactly. Agreed.
I don't know what the right answer to that is.
Jason, we had a comment from a union member in email. Did you happen to ask if that was a valid argument when you talked to legal counsel?
Remind me what her question.
I'm trying to remember exactly what it said. It said something to the effect that they had to have permission from,
Oh, okay, so Montana
Right.
is a one consent state. So all we have to do is post in a conspicuous place that we are audio recording.
okay.
Some states have a double consent where they have to get like a physical signature that says both
Right.
parties agree to it. But under Montana law currently, all we have to do is post in a conspicuous place that is happening, and that keeps us legal.
And that notification is in the policy.
Okay. Well, I didn't think it was correct what they were saying, but thank you for
That's right, I forgot.
clarifying. And this would be first reading anyway, wouldn't post it till second, but, okay.
And they said, you know, there's no federal laws whatsoever governing. So it's all within the state.
Let's see. And we can discuss this and yay it or nay it or whatever. But I'm going to move to approve policy 3235, video surveillance as reviewed, or video surveillance with audio option.
I would second that.
It has been moved and seconded,
I'm sorry, on first reading.
moved and seconded to approve MTSBA, no,
Yes,
yes, MTSBA model policy 3235 with video, or with audio option on first reading. Any further discussion? Discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes.
And I do want to clarify, Jason, you made a great point around that. You know, having it in policy that we can is one thing. Implementing, that's something else to consider more deeply. So,
Well, yeah, and I think at some point we're gonna have to talk about that.
yeah, probably, yeah.
And maybe in a separate policy or separate action, we'll have to come back to that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd agree, I'd agree.
But with that, you know, the notification goes up and everything else. I don't know when would be the proper time to come back to that.
Maybe that'll take another phone call or two to MTSBA and see
But what makes sense?
how they, maybe even visiting, finding a school that has implemented that and find out.
Right.
What they did in their, either through policy or maybe through the handbook as well. Could do that.
Yeah.
Okay. I will do that. I will make another phone call and visit with them a little further on that. Okay, so now we're to the 3300s, which we've been rolling down the hill for a little while, but again, Todd has put in the majority of
if it's the last thing I do before I leave this place, we're going to be done.
the work on
I'm
that.
just telling you.
He is not able to be with us again here tonight, and he identified some things in the handbook and the policy that he wanted to make sure that they jive one with another before presenting the policy the last time. So I think it will be the recommendation that we table this one more time or keep it tabled since it's already tabled.
Yeah, but we only have, what, 5 more meetings or something? I don't know. I don't know if 5, you may not get there.
I'll have to put a rush on it.
Yeah. Todd, are you watching out there?
I'm sure it is.
And does that encompass the 3311 and 12 too, or no?
No, that would
Okay, so
not.
just the 3300 and the 3300.
Yes, we can still do those two,
Okay.
if you'd like.
Yes.
Okay.
Moving on. Policy 3311, firearms and weapons.
Okay, our current policy is the same as the MTSBA policy, that using option 1. As you see, the MTSBA policy has 3 options that you can use. We use the option 1. The only other difference is the MTSBA policy states in the last sentence that the trustees shall annually review this policy and update this policy as determined necessary by the trustees based on changing circumstances pertaining to school safety. I guess my own opinion is I would lean towards just leaving ours as reviewed without that, because to me, if anything comes up and changes, we're gonna review it anyway. I don't know that doing it on an annual basis is necessary. It's, when it's necessary to review that policy and look at weapons. With the legislature doing what they're doing with weapons and the possibility of carrying them on campuses and colleges, or even during activities, I mean, it could change again to where we're gonna have new policies to do that. So I guess that's kind of up to the board, and whatever you guys think, if you think that's necessary.
This is an aside, but I don't recall, I think that's both for concealed and non-concealed weapons.
Yes, sir.
So I was thinking.
So if you have a further one way or the other, otherwise I would recommend we just approve ours as reviewed. And with the updates we get from MTSBA, if there's a change that we need to update any policy, they send us a notice anyway to put those out, so.
I think in my mind, I guess, on a year-by-year basis, it is simply bringing it to your attention on a year-by-year basis. And I don't know if that needs to, I mean, it's in our attention anyway.
I think go either way, as long as you remember to bring it up every year.
So I'm not, I know.
That's my hard part, is remembering a year from now that we gotta talk about this.
Well, for my part, I move to approve policy 3311, firearms and weapons as reviewed.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded to approve policy 3311, firearms and weapons as reviewed. Any further discussion? Discussion, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion passes. Policy 3312, detention.
Okay, there is no model policy from MTSBA for 3312 detention. It was basically just to establish our ability to do detentions and include that as even, I guess we call them Saturday schools, which are actually could be considered detentions because we're detaining the student. It just talks about basically using detentions for, misconduct. And then, other than that, I mean, all it's doing is giving us kind of a guideline for that. So, and I know it talks about detentions in our discipline policy. We have detentions in our handbook. We have, it's a little bit of everywhere. So we're just covering it a lot.
Some kids need it. Is there a motion?
How do you guys feel about Saturday detention?
I've done Saturday community service a couple of times.
You have,
A few.
would you tell?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, Sherry's done it. It's a good deterrent to have to show up here on Saturday.
It does, it hurts. They go, oh, not doing that again. Not many though.
Okay, so you're for it.
What's that?
You're for Saturday detention.
If it's necessary, I've never actually used a Saturday detention,
But
but I have done like with the kids that are like the tardy policy and doing community service, if they've gone way over, we've done that a few times and it's actually been good for them. It hasn't hurt them a bit, so.
okay, well, as such,
Yeah, as
as
such.
such, I move to approve policy 3312 detentions as reviewed.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve policy 3312, detentions as reviewed. Any further discussion? Discussion, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, motion passes.
Could be looking at a 6-day school.
Principal's report.
Like a
I have those on the
Mr. Rock.
We have students continuing to transition between remote and in-person learning. We've it's actually been about a wash. I did get a call today. I think we have 3 more K-8s that will start in midterm. And I think there's a prep. It's kind of tough because the news says, everything's getting better. This is not here. I've seen more this week than I have in the last 4 weeks combined. And, I think that's one of the reasons some people want to come back. The students that are leaving, I don't know of any of them recently that have left due to COVID reasons. It's usually other reasons. So that number is staying right about the same at this point. I do think as the school year gets into the 4th quarter, I think we'll see some that want to come here to finish up the year. I hope things are in a position where we can do that. ESY, we are in a.
Can I have one question about that? You allow them to transition just once per semester, is that correct?
We don't really have a hard and fast policy.
Oh.
We've asked parents to, if they're leaving now, we ask them to please, at this point, I tell them to wait until at least the quarter break to come back. The parents have been really good with that. We did that the first semester. you know, if parents wanted to come back, we feel like it's better to have students in school, plain and simple. So if they want to come back, we're open to that, and we'll try to work with them. We try to find, for grading purposes, it's easier if they come back at one of those dividing points, be it quarter break, semester break, midterm, whatever. Parents have been good, so now when they're leaving, I do ask them to please, you know, we would have to ask you to stay out for at least through the quarter break.
From a curricular perspective, so they're in school and they're doing school stuff, and then they go remote, and then I guess they go do a syllabus, right? Does the curriculum align?
Not at all.
And if not, what do you do about it?
Just like if a student transferred, and I explained to parents that there's probably either going to be a gap or overlap there, that they're going to be in a position where they're either seeing material they've seen before, or they're going to miss a little bit, and that makes it tough. And we run into the same thing. It really truly is the same as if a student was transferring schools. If they transferred from an out of district student came here, odds of them being in the exact same place in math or science or whatever is not very high. So
Where does that leave you ending up at the end of the year? Or that student end up at the end of the year?
haven't been at the end of the year yet. Don't know, never done it. Never, seriously, we've never done this before. You know, we adopted this program with very little, you know, we really adopted it with on the recommendation of other districts around. And we needed a solution, and we needed one pretty quickly. And as we've gone through it, we've found a lot of pros and cons. I mean, there's some good things with it. There's definitely some things that aren't favorable. You know, as using it as more or less a replacement curriculum. But the idea is that at the end of the year, we'll all end up at the same place, because that program is based on, say, a fourth grade curriculum. And, you know, it meets the standards. And so ideally, we would, or I guess even theoretically, we're going to end up in the same place. And I kind of explained that to parents. We might take a little different journeys to get there, a little different roadmap, but at the end of the year, we should be at the same spot. I do have concerns as students come back, because I just don't think you get the in-depth things you get doing an online program that you do from being at school. But, you know, that's part of the situation we're in.
With K-8, the next question around this, Sherry was said last time, it wasn't last meeting or the meeting before that, you lost about a third of your high school kids when they're going remote. That's what you had mentioned. How many they kind of drop off, you don't hear from them?
Oh, you mean just like?
Just of your Accel's kids.
Of my
Your
Accel's
Accel's kids,
kids.
yeah.
Yeah, that we have,
Yeah.
I haven't lost a third of high school yet, so I'm pretty sure they're still there.
No, this is what we're speaking to.
No,
This is
yeah,
the Accel's
no,
stuff,
I know
right?
what you're saying, just the Accel's kids. Yeah, we have a few, and it's been difficult to get in contact with parents, and even when I send out midterms, I handwrite on there, you know, I have concerns, give me a call, you know, try to get parent, and I've had a few call me out of that, which was really good. I was happy to talk with you, and they're just, you know, a lot of times I think at the high school level, they just are trusting their students to just be doing what they're supposed to be doing, and they're not. And then we do end up, we end up losing communication with some of them for sure.
So it's about a third. And Brad, your case, how do you feel about that? What do you think?
Oh, I think we get pretty good engagement, and the teachers have, you know, they're having at least weekly meetings with them. And it's been, you know, it's very easy to reach out through that program, and you can actually set it up to where your messages go to the parent also. So, you know, there's always a few. We got more than a few in school that aren't engaged. And we have a few, obviously, that are engaged in that. But overall, I think it's pretty good.
Okay, all right, thank you.
I've read a little bit about the education gap that's projected for the end of this year with some of these students. Are you going to recommend they repeat the year, or what's going to happen?
As far as what? Like,
if they haven't been doing the remote learning, I mean, it's nationwide. I mean, there's a,
right.
what do you do at the end of the year when they haven't completed minimum requirements for the grade.
Same thing we would do if they're here, which would be at the K-8 level, retention really boils down to working with a parent and coming to a joint decision as to what's best for them if you're going to retain. I mean, the research is, it's so overwhelming, you can't even argue with it, that retention is not the answer to, the drawback. I think it leads to higher dropouts, it leads to less engagement, leads to more social and emotional issues. I think you try to find some other things to do with. We've done some things in the past where we've worked with parents to do some correspondence type work, which now would be more online work, to help fill those gaps a little bit. And it's kind of on the parent's dollar, kind of leaving that with, hey, here's the options. Either, we really are, and it's with students that have like repeatedly failed a given subject or multiple subjects, and where we feel they could not successfully move on. And that's the approach I take with the parent, is that, if they've struggled this much at 7th grade math, we have very real concerns about them going on to 8th grade math because they don't have that basis, and we need to do something to build that base for them. And we've had pretty good luck with it. Parents work pretty well with it. It doesn't happen a lot. We usually are able to, kind of remediate those things along the way, ideally. This is a little different animal, and we're getting, I don't know that we have any students in that boat. We might. It gets really iffy when you get down to remote learning with younger students. It gets really difficult because they cannot do that without the parent. And it gets, it's just working with those parents and working with the teachers. Our bigger problem is what has happened is some of those students that early on were not engaged at all, we get on them really, they end up dropping in homeschooling instead. Because guess what? Nobody's looking after them, and to see that they're doing it. And some of the homeschoolers are doing a great job. They just chose to go that direction for whatever reason. But I think our bigger issue is we have students that are progressing. They're doing way more. We're begging them to slow down because and I'm not even kidding. We have some that they're able to work through it, and then okay, I did all the 1st grade, I'm ready to move on to 2nd grade. I said, no, that's not really the way it works. Because what we don't want is, an 8-year-old kid coming in and go, hey, I'm a freshman, I'm ready. I did them all. And the workload is not as intense as some people would lead you to believe. And so in that case, we're having teachers do some supplemental things with it. The teachers have been great. And do some extension type things with them. But then that starts to become quite a burden on the teacher to do that. And so, we're kind of taking the approach of if we had a student that was working really, progressing really fast in class, we would continue to try to challenge them somehow. But that is a problem. But I think that's bigger than the ones that aren't engaged at all. We have a few of those, but I think we have more that are just really getting after it, especially at the younger grades where the parents are very involved with it. But yeah, that is going to present an interesting scenario, but hopefully we don't have that situation because we've dealt with it along the way. So ideally. Extended school year, we're in a kind of a unique position for our district this year, as we do have some individual education plans that probably are going to call for some type of extended school year. We've been in a situation for a long time where we just haven't had that. We've had a couple where we've worked with parents to do things outside of the school year, more kind of supplemental type things. But this year, some very, unique situations where we're going to need to provide something. And I have some ideas possibly on how we might be able to do that as we go, but just so you guys know, it is something that would be required if an IEP team felt it was necessary. So we'll continue to work with those parents, and the couple that we have, we're not, obviously, we don't have a summer school program here in Townsend, so we've kind of added around some ideas of what it could possibly look like, and we'll continue to work with them, and I think we've decided to kind of reconvene those in April and May and make those decisions. There's going to be some construction relocation coming up. Obviously, we know that. One of them is going to be coming up really quickly, which is the playground. We're going to have to find a place for the playground. I don't have one. I kept kind of thinking, man, that's a long ways off. That's, it's coming. They said they were going to hope to maybe start getting going on that in March. I don't know. It's obviously weather dependent, but we're going to need to do some relocating. And I don't really know that there's a practical solution other than we're going to have to use our football field. I know that's going to make some people very unhappy, but I don't know. I mean, to me, I would say that this construction project is kind of a all-encompassing thing, and everybody's going to have to give a little. And it's just, and the same next fall. I don't know what, I don't know if you guys really are. We go to great lengths to stay off that football field with kids outside of football in the fall. So, if you guys have any great suggestions.
How difficult would it be to go down to Heritage Park?
Christina?
2 blocks down, 3 blocks.
Our recesses are 15 minutes, so by the time we got down there.
By the time they ran down there, they could run right back.
That's exactly right. And you get all kinds of mobility things with them Dodge traffic.
Yeah.
It's really,
Yeah.
there are some concerns. We thought about that, and we haven't ruled that out, especially for maybe some of our extended type stuff. There is problems with getting there and safety with getting there with the younger kids and those kind of things, but we'll kind of, I know Ms. Hartman is going to come up with a really good plan.
I've got some ideas.
Just off you say 15 minutes, the recess time, can you work the schedule to where that's longer time?
Oh, we might be able to. We changed everything for COVID this year.
Yeah.
We had groups out there together and we switched it all up where everyone has an individual recess. So, maybe that might be a thing that we put a 30-minute recess or something. And
You probably have 2 15 minutes a day, or?
yeah, we have 250, yeah.
So maybe one longer one.
Right, yeah. So we'll just have to look at the schedule and see what might work or, there might be some other ideas too.
Yeah, we're looking at everything and we'll try to find something that works. And the big concern is safety first and foremost, and it's the safety of being able to get them places without being in the way of the construction and that safety thing. And then with any kind of, whether it's a traffic thing or a space issue or being able to supervise appropriately. All of those kind of come into play with it, as well as some liability issues. So we'll figure something out, and it's an exciting. I think the good news is, it's an exciting time, and I think people, especially early, are going to be pretty willing to do whatever it takes. Now if that continues as we wear on, like everything, the novelty wears off, but.
Just like road construction.
And I've said it before, that really we couldn't time this any better because this year has been so messed up anyway with schedules, with things that we do that, it's not like we're going from everything just, on a running like a clock and moving into a construction project. So really, we're used to chaos.
I hope so.
Chaos.
And the teachers have been great, and everybody's been great about sharing space, about everything, so.
Well, like this week, we got -0, we're below 0 all
Yeah,
week.
you gotta
They're
keep
inside
them
all
all.
week, so.
We've been really fortunate that we've had a mild winter and
Yeah.
haven't had to be inside a lot, because that creates a real problem for us under our current situation. Science fair is coming up. It's Thursday, and we're doing it in a virtual format. I'm sure some of you have been approached about being judges. It's obviously an entirely new situation. The science fair is one of our biggest community involvement things that we do from an academic standpoint. We have a lot of visitors into the building. We're not doing that. I'm really happy that we've had so many volunteers that are willing to try a new format, because I think it can be very intimidating for some of our judges that like to do it. It's easier to say no than it is to learn a whole new way of doing it. And we're really fortunate that people have stepped up and they're willing to do it. And then it's going to take this year all of our staff to get students in rooms, monitor those students as they're presenting. And it'll be, I'm really confident it's going to go off well, because Mrs. Shearer and Mrs. Robichon have they just kind of did this from scratch, and it's, they've really worked hard at trying to make it work. With that, it also presents some issues. Historically, our school has done really, really well moving on to the regional and state. I mean, we're really, really good at this. Our students and our science teachers have done a great job. And this year, they are doing a virtual science fair at the Butte one, but it's not as easy as they'd almost have to totally redo everything they've done to meet their requirements. So I think there's some talk right now that we're going to make it optional for students that want to continue on to do that. If they don't want to do that, we're not going to require that of them. But it'll be good. I'm excited to see how it turns out, and those two especially have put a lot of hard work into it, so I hope it's good. That's it.
Any other questions for Mr. Rock? Mrs. Hebron?
All right, so just kicking off with a congrats to our back-to-back state drama camps. Speech and drama did amazing in their, as we've been talking about everything new and virtual this year. It was, I talked to a lot of kids about it, and they said it's so weird, but we're figuring it out. And they obviously did very well at figuring it out. And so we're pretty excited for all of those kids. We posted all of the results on website and social media, so it's all out there how they each finished individually, but they did awesome. They were pretty excited about that. So we have one winter activity done. It was a shortened season for sure.
Actually, that's
yeah.
the second year they won
Back to
state,
back, yep.
to back, and then the year before, weren't they second?
I think so,
State,
yes,
I think.
they took second. So yeah, Mrs. Bachman's done a nice job building quite the program there. And a lot of kids, it stayed very full, even virtually. I thought we might, lose a few that were like, I don't know if I want to do that. And they hung in there and did really well. So we're very proud of them. Kind of all grouped together, new semester. Acellus, we kind of talked about a lot of that already. And, continuing COVID challenges. We're kind of in the throes of another wave right now. And it's about our third, this one's big one. It hit us pretty hard this time, but we are gonna get through it, and teachers are doing a great job staying up, as Brad expressed, staying on board with the Acellus kids, staying on board when we have to quarantine kids. I mean, they just have really, dug in and come up with some good ways to keep in touch with all of those kids that are going through all of these things. Man, are they utilizing Google Classroom and a lot of those other platforms that have really kind of saved them a lot of hard work and able to roll out a lot of information to kids quite quickly. We even started a Google Classroom for all of the remote students in the high school. So they're all on one Google Classroom so that Mrs. Audette and I can continue to get information to them and keep them updated and all of those different things as well. So they don't feel like they're missing out on a lot of things here at the school. Another way to try to keep in contact with them. We did have a few go to remote learning. We actually had more come back. So that was one thing that I was kind of happy to see, that we had more students return, but I think we're still sitting at pretty close. I think we have 34 kids that are still doing remote learning, and some of those ones that are just still not engaging with us and not really in contact with us, which obviously is concerning.
Now, did you have those come back during the semester break?
Yeah, they did. Most of them came back at the semester, So, and kind of extending on Brad's answer, a little different in the high school. If they leave, we do ask them to, we try to inform them that, they're pretty much making a semester commitment. Now, obviously, that being said, if kids want to come back, I agree with Brad 100%. They're better off to be on our campus. It becomes difficult with earning credits at the high school level and how we can match that stuff up. It's a little different for us on our side of things, but we're figuring it out. Mrs. Audette has worked incredibly hard. She's had to hand update all of the transcripts for the Acellus kids, so that's 30-some transcripts that don't just automatically update with Infinite Campus because the classes don't match the Acellus classes. So she's just gone above and beyond, and obviously it was very challenging because we basically did 2 sets of student schedules. So, the normal schedule, the kids make some of their changes, and it took both of us working on it an extra week to get everybody's schedule set and get everybody changed up with the added Acellus things, but we got it done. So I think we've got everybody rolling in the right direction for the second semester. We're pretty happy with how all of that went. One of our biggest concerns with Townsend, and again, that Brad alluded to, we saw students, same thing. So we have students that are disengaged. We also have students that have already finished a year-long course by semester time. So then the challenge is, do we add more do we give them more classes? What do we do with those kids? And then we had kids that at the end of the semester disengaged, way behind, not making progress, and they were able to, for example, complete a semester of geometry in 12 hours. That concerns me with the quality of the curriculum, and I'm thinking, okay, I don't know about that. So, to speak to what Kevin said, we're going to have some gaps too. We're going to find kids that we're going to have to catch up, and I foresee our staff being able to recognize that right away and get those supports in place. As Brad said, there's not much you can do, except for we'll just have to find those supports to get them caught up to where they need to be in their math and English and all of those skills. So yeah, we're navigating it. We're figuring it out. Some things anyways.
If I may ask.
Yeah.
And so maybe you can clarify for me. So of course, we're using, kind of a grade format, and you do the work and it's a grade level sort of thing. What I'm getting at is there's been some discussion about proficiency-based learning. Would this be a place for some proficiency-based model rather than any other kind of model?
With the Acellus?
With the Acellus, for those students who are.
There's definitely options for that with any kind of online program like that. You could see that fitting that kind of format. The hard part is when we're not in charge of the curriculum and we're not in charge of, what their assignments, we're just obviously viewing what's there. It might be hard to set, what is proficient, where are we with our proficiency for those kinds of things. So,
and then the vagueness around proficiency is,
Right.
We can define whatever you want to be proficient. Well, that's not very defining.
Right.
So that's a problematic, I think.
Right. And we've come up with a formula for ourselves for the high school kids so that we can, we're trying to make it as fair as we can for the kids that are off campus and the kids that are on campus and, all of those things together. But I think that we've done a good job, considering how much progress are they making? Are they on track, in their class? And then obviously they are getting grades on the assignments and things that they're doing. So we've used Mr. Schindler's come up with a pretty good formula to put those things all together to give them what would be a fair grade, for their credit earning potentials for their classes. So yeah.
Thank you.
The other new thing that we started this semester was Mrs. Beck's 0 hour. It's the first time we've ever, I think that I know of, at least since I've been here, done a 0 hour of any kind.
Just ISS.
Just besides ISS, yeah. There you go. The seniors are loving it. So as you guys approved last year, they are coming in at 7:45 to do their dual credit writing and their dual credit speech classes with Mrs. Beck. And they are coming in Monday through Friday. They're a little shorter on Friday because we have a shorter schedule. We don't have Bulldog time in the morning on Fridays, but we've adjusted that, so we meet all of the requirements for Helena College and for the school here for their hours. And then they are allowed to leave after 6 hours. So it actually helps kind of free up our 7th hour problem we have with, having classes available because we have so many of the high school teachers teaching middle school classes 7th hour. So I think that's helped us a lot. We're not quite so log jam trying to figure out where we're going to put everybody in. They really like it. They're doing very well with it. She's very happy with how it's going. And, it seems like that's going quite well. So we may look at some other ideas around that in the future. So let's see, just kind of a postseason update. We're going to be rolling down on senior nights here pretty soon. And man, I hope with everything we get to our postseason. We're trying awful hard. Our teams are doing well. Wrestlers are doing well. Basketball teams are doing well. We have had several meetings. So there was a meeting on Monday, and then we have a divisional Southern B divisional meeting tomorrow. I think Travis and I have one virtual meeting tomorrow. They're trying to finalize what this is all going to look like for the postseason. We will be running the district basketball tournament much like volleyball, except for it is true double elimination. So there's not a play-in like we did for volleyball. It'll be just double elimination. And as we are ranking right now, it is looking like we are likely to host a girls' game on Tuesday night, like we talked about, and then a boys' game on Thursday night. So that's what it's looking like at this moment. So they'll both be at 6 o'clock at night. They're allowing, I have to remember my notes, they're allowing 5 spectators per athlete. So I think that's what they're on both sides. They are gonna, the district has agreed to allow bands to play, but there will be no student sections. The students will have to be in those 5 tickets and they have to sit with whoever they're grouped with. So that's how that is looking right now.
Any trustee tickets?
Any trustee? I don't know about that.
Talk to me later.
If you want to sell tickets, I put you at that table.
Hey, I'll sell popcorn, whatever you need.
Oh, did you hear that? Whatever. I heard whatever.
You back doors and sell tickets, you can give a
You can
perfect
actually
view
see
then,
the
you're
game.
right there.
I'm telling you, it's a good setup. Yeah, okay. The wrestlers are actually, it's finalized. They're headed to Cut Bank for their divisional wrestling, and then state wrestling will be in Shelby. And we're just, like I said, we're meeting about that tomorrow. We'll have, and basketball tomorrow as well. We'll have a little bit more information about what that's going to look like format-wise as well. Basketball divisionals, we will find out more about that tomorrow, but it is sounding and looking like we are going to continue to be at the Metra, in Billings. So obviously under probably a lot of different formats, but that's the location that the Metra is still going to allow us.
For divisionals? Or
For divisional
state?
basketball.
For
Divisional basketball. State was way up in the air the last time I heard, and maybe they'll have something on that tomorrow. So. And then just the activities, so we just continue to roll on. Like I said, we have senior nights coming up the 19th and the 20th. Mid-quarter is already here on the 19th as well. FFA, that's one big kind of standout thing. We have no school on the 15th of February, this next coming Monday. It is our turn to host the district FFA competition now, so Miss Gemma did a nice job putting together a proposal for the County Health Board and for Eric and I, and they have I think that's going to go very well, but that's happening Monday while we're not in school. So they're going to be using several areas of the high school to do their district competitions for FFA. So she's been busy all week getting ready for that. So, and then we talked about moving parent-teacher conferences. And then just some of the postseason stuff, that's what it looks like for now, but we'll update as we have any changes of locations or venues or timeframes or anything like that.
Any questions? Mr. Wilkerson?
Short and sweet as always. We did have some weather issues a couple weeks ago, but everything, they replaced some of the burners, I believe, and then different units, so everything's been running fantastic. In these last couple of days, it's been really nice. to have that great heat. Our enrollment, the official second count date was February 1st. Basically what it looked like is both the elementary and middle school both went up quite a bit. Actually, totally from the first count date in October to this one, we went up 19 students, which I thought was huge. However, high school went down from last year. Big graduating class. Well, no, it wasn't that big.
Great
Not a big
average.
one.
We have a really
Anyway.
small freshman class though, really small freshman class.
So as far as our budgeting goes with the A and B, we'll be using the current numbers, enrollment numbers for middle school and elementary, and we'll be using the 3-year average for high school.
Oh, you can break those up.
Yeah, you can break those up. Isn't that nice?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was your total for that?
Our total, the district total for fall was 633 and for spring was 652. So that average, anybody do that really quick? 42, no, 642, 43. So good with the enrollment. Mask mandate, I think we already covered that. And ESSER 2 funds, we are still waiting for the legislature to free those funds up. We're getting really close. And then it's just a matter of sitting down and figuring out how we're going to budget those monies. And those go through September of 2023. I may call upon maybe a couple board members to maybe sit down and on a committee to help, because that's a lot of money. And look at different options on how to budget that, maybe the administrative team. One of the things that I think is important to talk about there is we talked about these kids getting behind and the gap that may be created. ESSER 2 funds are, a lot of it can be used to help close those gaps. Problem is, if you hire extra people to help close those gaps and give them extra help, you get to 2023 in September and you gotta say, okay, now you're done, I'm sorry, we don't have any money.
But if you,
You can hire their classmates who are ahead.
Tutoring. I
Yeah.
like it.
So,
Peer
different
tutoring.
things to look at, but
Peer tutoring.
they have an elementary school is being built somewhere else, and they're using that to pay for their air handling system. So I think it's way out there. I think it's something that maybe high school, we look at our air handling system and see if there's a way to put it.
Suppose if you put a biohazard filter in it to reduce the virus in the air, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So if we, I don't know. Yeah, I could be engineer. There's different things that we could put on our system, yeah, with really good filters that would clean that up. So those might be options to look at. That's all I have at this point.
And they haven't identified a dollar figure for each school district, or have they have?
I think we're 426, is that what it was? $426,000. That's a chunk of change.
For just Townsend.
That's just us.
Wow.
That might cover the therapy, I'm not sure.
It just might for you.
I don't know, maybe, I don't know.
Therapy, not the meds though.
Not
It's interesting, we're getting so much because we are a title school. But you look at like Montana City, they're getting just hardly anything because they have a lot of low income students. And yet they still have the same needs that we do because of all this. So it's kind of interesting. We can, a lot of it they're saying used for title programs, used for special education, used for, supplement those programs that are for low income or those with disabilities. So
And this still is distributed through OPI.
it's going to be the same thing. It comes through OPI. We've got to do the whole grant process. We've got to have an entire budget. We can do amendments along the way, so it's not set in stone, but it's going to take a little more work. And we still have ESSER 1 funds up through next year, so.
well, I just wanted to say just really quickly, and Kevin kind of was talking about some of the nationwide media around remote learning. And I think it's like, I don't know, you tell me if I'm right or got the number right or wrong, like 87% of students are learning remotely nationwide. And so that would mean only 13% are face-to-face. So I really want to, hats off to you guys, hats off to the teachers, hats off to the students for working hard and remaining face-to-face. I think it's really important. You guys did a great job, and I think we're all proud of you.
Yeah.
The students are doing really well too, for the most part, they truly are, and I think they're happy to be here, and when we have to send them home, they don't necessarily, they're not loving that, so, well, some of them
Or the
are.
second time.
Or the third time, yeah, I
A lot of
know.
the information that's out there is about districts that are completely closed. There's no,
And even the ones that did a hybrid model, a couple days on, a couple days
Yeah.
off.
The Helena district's been interesting to watch. There was a letter
Yep.
written today by a teacher in the Helena district explaining that it's not easier on teachers doing it the way they're doing it, but it's gotta be harder on families. That's just,
Oh, yeah.
that's a
Yeah,
tough
that's-
situation.
No, you guys are doing great. I think it's wonderful. I think to be that 13% or whatever that number is, so it's great.
And thanks, Jason, for recognizing those coaches. There's, Dan and Laura McDade contacted the Montana Coaches Association. There's a very lovely,
They did a nice job.
they did a nice job. They wrote a nice letter and it's all over, it's all over everywhere. I saw it several times today. So yeah, it's very nice. And we do have some plans for a few other things that will be coming up. They're in the works. So,
Guess everybody make sure you eat a big lunch on Thursday.
oh man.
Committee meetings, so I know that Sean and Todd, that student services committee, will be looking at that expulsion policy. and-
Yeah, Todd, yes, we are looking at that, Todd.
That'll be a date that I guess you guys need to work on. And I know Vanessa has some things that she'd like to contribute.
Yeah, on that, to kind of have one speak to another. Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
I think that's all I've got, so. Meeting adjourned.
All right, thanks, sir.
I'm not getting in that thing away.